Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Do we have the same crew as yesterday?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, it appears again you guys are lucking out, getting another class to yourselves here.
Awesome.
I don't know where. I know where we left off yesterday. I kind of sped through just the general procedure of kind of how we manage rentals in the service program. Based on that yesterday, kind of what we went over, do you have some specific questions, and maybe we can kind of do a little Q&A and cover what you need?
We have a major problem that we need you to solve.
Uh-oh. All right, what's going on?
I'm gonna let Brandy talk because she's more in tune to it after talking to the CPA.
Okay, so right now we have all of our equipment set up in QuickBooks and the service program as inventory. Well, yesterday we ran into the problem, well, I don't know if it's a big deal, but to him, apparently it's a big deal, that the inventory that we own is not actually inventory, it's equipment, and we will need to depreciate it in QuickBooks, and we can't do that since it's in QuickBooks as inventory and in the service program as inventory.
Do you understand what she's saying? There's no equipment module that has a depreciation field to where you can depreciate. You can put the valued equipment and depreciate it. And I don't think that Intuit makes anything for QuickBooks that does that.
Basically, they need to be put in QuickBooks as fixed assets,
Right.
not inventory, because it's not products that we're going to be selling. It's products that we own that we're going to be renting.
Or what is the question? Is the question, will the service program be able to depreciate
Yeah.
the equipment?
No, will the service when we have to take all of the inventory out of QuickBooks as inventory and re-enter it in as fixed assets. Will the service program still recognize the?
Yes. Yes.
It's not
Our
going to be
item
under
list.
inventory anymore, though.
Tell us how everybody else is doing it in this industry that you've been dealing with, because they all got to have the same problem.
Now, I don't know how they, on a big overall scale, I don't know the specifics on how they depreciate or keep track of the depreciated value of the fixed inventory. But you can set up your equipment as fixed assets in QuickBooks, and those will show up in the item list in our software.
Okay, but how do you do that? I mean, because QuickBooks is telling us that we need to upgrade from QuickBooks Pro 2013 to the accounting version.
Which I think we need to do.
Which we may have to do that, but before I go do that and spend money, I want to make sure that's what we have to do.
I'll actually be coming out spending less money. Because you can give it this 20% discount.
Now, what do we? How have you been currently tracking it? Well, if you're I can't remember if you were new kind of company together.
Company. Yeah, we're a new company. But let's say, I mean, just for example, let's say I got a winch, and that winch cost me $20,000. You know, in Peachtree or in Sage or any of those accounting programs, I put that asset in as a fixed asset, okay? And I can set up how I want to depreciate it. You know what I mean? And then I also can set up, what it cost me, how I want to depreciate it, and then an asset number. You see what I'm saying? That doesn't do that in the inventory part of it. That's more like a sell item.
Correct, and I believe QuickBooks has, I don't know if it's specific to the accounting version, but I think it's the advanced inventory module for QuickBooks.
Mm-hmm.
Fixed asset manager.
Asset manager's called?
Fixed asset manager.
Fixed asset manager, right. So would you suggest that we go to that?
I'm looking it up right here, so I'm not the most familiar on the QuickBooks. Let me see. I know in our software you can track to some extent when you open up a piece of equipment, their equipment detail, you can track a replacement cost, a market cost, your date it was purchased, your purchase price, but it doesn't necessarily do any automatic depreciation.
Right.
No, we need.
Right. I think that might be one of the weak points of QuickBooks, unless you get this asset management module.
This is how much.
Which I think, I mean, I'm on several rental companies, and all of the Peachtree systems I use had that on there. That's why I was wondering about QuickBooks.
Refund the entire amount for what we already paid.
So we had to get Tim to just put that on there.
They'll probably do it for us. They can probably connect themselves and do it.
No, they can't connect our computer.
Yeah.
I don't have the password and all that. I wouldn't want them to have it.
Yes. He was like, we need to trash this entire system, take everything. I said, I already started paying.
I think it is the, let's see, I believe it is the add-on for QuickBooks, the Fixed Asset Manager.
Okay.
And it says, here are some of the features: integration with QuickBooks, detailed customizable asset entry screen, fixed depreciation bases, book, state, federal, other, projected depreciation calculations. Let's see.
And I won't have to keep track of spreadsheets in a binder. All I have to do is go and.
Yeah, we're just trying to appease this this anal accountant that we have.
You're not an accountant, are
I
you?
hope you're not an accountant.
No, not by any means. Just very familiar with.
A total different breed of people here.
Right.
No, we do. I've worked with a lot of accountants, and man, they're tough. Let me.
Oh, yeah.
I think the best way would be a quick call to Intuit, and just to verify whether or not they need whatever module you need. I don't know for sure whether it's the accountant edition of QuickBooks, if it has that fixed asset tracking. I know other users that I've seen when they've synchronized with our software, that the inventory shows up as a fixed asset in the item list here.
But we already called into it, so I mean, I think we're a step ahead of that. We just want to make sure that your program, once we change over, is still going to merge with this new fixed asset module.
Yeah.
Correct.
You know, but you're saying it's going to recognize it.
Yeah. I believe will be completely compatible with it, and you may not have to set up the individual items on this list. When you enter a new transaction, you may just pick the fixed asset right from the QuickBooks item list to rent that out, because that'll be tracking the serial number already, the asset number.
So it may be a little simpler in the long run.
Correct. It may be just a little less data entry.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay.
That'll be good.
That's good. Well, once we get off this phone call, we'll call Intuit back and see if we can get that. They're actually going to give us a credit on the system we have and reinstall the one we need.
And I think your company file, you should be able to open your existing company file with the new version of QuickBooks, whatever they give you, and everything you've entered so far will transfer over seamlessly.
Yeah, well, we have a computer guru that's going to do all that for us. So.
Okay, great.
We'll make it work. Okay, so now that we got that, we can start our session.
Perfect. So one crisis averted, hopefully not another on the horizon. Now you had mentioned yesterday there was another question that I kind of showed you how to run a generic billing, but there was something specific, and I apologize, I did not make a little note that I said, maybe bring that up when we have today's class, when we have a little bit more time. And it had
Brandy
to do
took
with,
notes, so let me see if Brandy knows.
Wait, what is it?
Something about billing. He was going to show us when he went to this module.
I think it was, I was going through talking about the delivery date and the build through.
Your question of with weather, for instance.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. If you had to do start and stops,
Okay.
because we're in the weather, we work offshore, so clients will call us up and say, look, we got a hurricane headed this way, so can you stop the rent tonight at midnight, and then I'll call you and let you know when to restart it. That was the question. Can we do that?
Yeah, I think the simplest way to handle that would be you'd actually create a separate transaction to handle the start and stop. And the nice thing about our software is when you go to then bill that client, it'll combine. You have the option to combine transactions for the same customer.
Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, that'll be an easy way to do it.
So you'll just close out the
You just close out that particular ticket, start it again, stop it again, and then combine it together and invoice it all in one, showing the different dates. Okay, that's cool.
Yep, and it will, so if this is rented out to 456 East Street, delivered today, they call, the 13th, tell you to stop it. We would keep this actually the 11th, and then it would be date return the 13th. Do you want to invoice it now? Yes.
Do you have to have that date return put in there in order
That's
to
what,
put that ticket?
yeah, that's what our software uses as the stopping date for a rental.
Okay.
And if we're in that transaction, you can always hit duplicate rental after you put in the date returned, and it'll instantly pick the same customer, same item, just create a duplicate transaction, and you can then just adjust the date.
Okay.
Go ahead.
To me, it might seem confused. I might be a little confused here. But see, because you have your delivery date, which will be your start date of the rental. Your bill through date will be the last day of the rental.
The build through is also, if it's new transaction, these dates are the same.
Okay.
So your billing is from a long-term rental perspective would be from the build through date to the date returned.
Okay. So we would put. So that date returned would be just the day that they called us and say, hey, can you stop this rental while we were waiting on the weather to pass? And then.
Correct.
Okay.
So I stopped the other rental on the 13th. So this one, they call back, let's say the 14th. And then that rental goes, to the following Monday, and it's done.
Okay. I think I understand that.
We need to figure out after all this who's going to be doing what.
And then when I go into billing here, let me get other stuff in here. You would see something like this. It would be your equipment rental from the 11th to the 13th, and then from the 14th to the 17th. So you would see these two line items. When you ran the billing batch, you have the option to combine customer invoices. So those would actually go into one invoice in QuickBooks, just be two separate line items. So every start and stop would be a separate line item, detailed out with the charge and the dates.
Okay, understand that.
That makes.
Okay.
I'm going to go and rewatch these videos a few times.
All right.
Now, as far as the basic, renting out a new item, are there any other types of charges that you would associate with the rental? Are there any service charges? Are there any delivery fees, pickup fees?
Well, what we may have in this industry is what they call a mobilization and demobilization, which means that we usually charge a day going and a day coming. That's how we come up with it. So if, let's say, something rents for $400 a day, we might have a mobilization of $400 a day, and then when they return it, we might have a demobilization of $400 a day. But it's a one-time charge, almost like a delivery charge.
Okay.
But then again, we could have a delivery charge too.
Yeah.
On top of that, depending on if we hire a truck to go bring it.
Perfect. Now,
And then also,
these,
I mean, say if I were to go out to set up the equipment, you know,
Well, that
I
would be
have
in the
like-
mobilization fee, right?
You would be put as a technician.
Right. So would that be billed through this?
Yes, we can put a line item in the
Yeah.
inventory as a technician,
Right.
an hourly rate. Okay.
and that's kind of right where I was headed. This rental transaction can not only hold equipment, it would also hold any additional service charges that need to be applied, so maybe a delivery fee.
Right.
So we can just go in and add that.
As
doesn't-
needed, and you tell it, instead of the equipment being prorated, your delivery fee is run once.
Okay.
Meaning the first time this is billed, if this is a long-term transaction, it would show up on their first bill, and then not on any future bills. If it was,
So you just type it in. You don't have to have it as an item in inventory, right?
you would have it as everything you're seeing here, everywhere where it's asking for an item, everything comes from QuickBooks. So you would have to create a service item in QuickBooks.
Okay, that's what I thought. All right.
So any dollar amount that you want to carry over to an invoice that goes to QuickBooks comes from a service item, an inventoried item, a non-inventoried item, or an asset item in QuickBooks.
Okay.
So you may have one called mobilization charge, you may have a demobilization, you may have a delivery fee or a pickup fee.
Right, and also we may have a technician.
Your technician, actually what you can use to manage the time for the technician is where this is kind of expanding into what not only does the software do the rentals, it can manage the deliveries and pickups. So let's say this is a new rental. The delivery date is today. We've got our one-time mobilization or delivery charge. And now we need to get it to a technician to perform this.
Mm-hmm.
Right here at the top, I have a selection of what I need to do. Do I need a delivery task or a delivery work order, a pickup, or an exchange or swap? May not apply to what your industry, but you may use the delivery and pickup. So what this allows me to do is just hit Create Task. So it goes right into what's called a task in our software, which is, just to preface this, a task is anything that a Post-it note can be all the way up to a billable work order or non-billable work order. This can be simply just closed out when it's complete and stored in the customer's history that this was delivered or this was picked up. But now we have a task or a work order we can track where you can assign it to a particular technician. You then have a little more control over a start and stop time of when this needs to be there at the client, maybe if it's scheduled. When I close the task, that's what creates that entry right on that home screen of task list, where I would see a rental delivery. And I could filter and see all my deliveries, all my pickups. If your guys, if you plan to be using the mobile devices with our software, this is where that part comes in, is the technicians from either an iPhone or an Android device can download our app. They can sync and they'll see all their pickups and deliveries color-coded just like it is on the desktop. Everything for them today would be outlined in yellow. They would see all the information, what customer they got to go to, what they're delivering, the serial number, what the quantity is.
What's the name of that app?
It is the, I believe it's called just Service Program.
Okay.
There is a, we do have to do an installation on one of your computers to get the app to communicate with the desktop software. And that could be, we offer that for free. We'll set that up for you. You just got to call in to our tech support and schedule a quick appointment. It takes us about an hour, hour and a half to get the app syncing with the desktop. But it really does give you a nice paperless solution for the guys out in the field. If they're on the road all day picking, swapping these pieces of equipment, they see their task list, and just I can throw a couple quick screenshots up just so you can kind of see what it looks like before. The app is expensive. It is $20 per device. So before you make that purchase, I'll give you a little preview here. So when they first log into the device, this is what they see. They have task list, route schedule, customer list, item list, invoice entry, security permissions within the desktop software control what they can and can't do. By default, the technician, as far as customers they only see the customers that they have work assigned for. So if they've got 3 tasks for the day, if they go to the customer list, they will only see the information for those 3 customers. Now you can give them a admin access or manager access where they'll see the full customer list, just like you would in our software. It doesn't have all the information like QuickBooks does, payments and the billing options and terms, but just the contact information. When they go to their task list, this is what they would see. This would be a past due task, something that they missed from a previous day in the week. Have the customer name, who it's assigned to, the start time and the due date, or the delivery date. When they tap on that task, that's when they get the full details.
Okay.
They can tap the little map icon, it'll open up within our application, show a push pin of where they are and where the customer is. If they hit the little green arrow to edit, that's when they get to task details where they can put in their notes. They could put in a resolution or delivery completed. They can actually put in the start and stop time of what it took them from when they left your warehouse to when they actually delivered it at the customer. We have reports that use that data for job costing for the technicians. They even have the option to add billable line items on the fly in the field. So I don't know if you do have to perform any maintenance of this equipment while they're out on site. You can actually have the guys track the labor hours that they were there through a line item that they could add onto that task and send back to the office. Quick snapshot of the route schedule, which I don't think you'll have the route schedule. Let's see. Customer list. You can search for any customer. When you tap on it, it pulls up customer detail like it does on the desktop. See all their information, tap to call, tap to map. You can see customer equipment currently on rent. You can see service history or customer notes history. So it does have some nice functionality. Now you can print a schedule if you want to start off with paper. You have all these different tasks that are used to manage the pickups and deliveries. I can just hit print on my task list. Let's say I want to print a schedule for one of my technicians. I have a couple stops for. Let me just put a couple on the same day here. We could print a schedule or any type of reporting. We could print all tasks assigned to a specific user or entered by, all in a certain department. This is one report. The task type would be, rental delivery or rental pickup. Have the customer information, the address. The task description would have the information from that rental transaction, what piece of equipment they were delivering, the serial number or asset number, and the quantity. tasks can also be viewed on the schedule view, which is a built-in Outlook-style calendar for scheduling. You can see nice things. You'd be able to see all your drivers on one calendar, even for the whole week. Since everything is tab-driven, when a customer calls, if I'm entering a new rental, I can have my schedule view open so I know when I can actually possibly squeeze in a delivery based on when I have other tasks created. And you can also schedule from here, so I can drag and drop, reschedule a job. Just double-click the entry to go right into task detail. Now, do you have to do any servicing of this equipment while they're either on-site or in-house?
It's possible.
Well,
Okay.
we had that question, how we would build time to it yesterday.
The task is what you'll use, one, to manage any customer communication, as well as any in-house service or customer-related service. If it's at a customer site, you have to go service it or perform any maintenance. That's all done through a task.
Okay.
And this is covered kind of in the beginner class. We kind of went yesterday and looked at customer information and then right into rentals. Usually I cover the tasks exclusively in the beginner class, and I'll kind of jump into that now. Your task can also be reoccurring, so it can be as simple as like a reoccurring reminder to we have users that, you have multiple different clients that have different billing requirements. Some want it billed on a calendar month, some want it billed every 28 days. If you need to accommodate those, you could create a simple task to remind you to run billing for a certain client, and it creates a reoccurring pop-up reminder here. And that can just be closed out, doesn't have to be invoiced when it's completed. So you can use this for inter-office communication. Because this is the first screen you see when you log in, you can task each other. That way there's no more sticky notes, there's no more little memo pads. Someone calls in for someone, you could create a task, pick the customer, just to track that customer call. That way everything's logged in the software. To create a task, we just have to hit the green plus sign labeled task entry. We then can pick the customer. You have a task type, which these, just starting the program, this whole list is blank. And all you have to do is simply double click, and you can then start setting up task types, or you just type them on the fly, and it'll add it to the list. These are just the general categories of why you're creating the task: billing question, collections call, customer complaint, service call. On-site maintenance, maybe. The task description will be visible. Everything's visible on the hard copy, but the task description and the resolution are visible to the customer. Meaning if you were to close out this task and turn it into an invoice for any type of billing, the description and resolution will appear on the first line of the invoice in our software. So if you need a spot for office notes or nasty notes about your customer, put that in the task-specific notes. That stays in-house, but if you have that little box show on work ticket, the tech will be able to see it. But there's a setting in the software to default this either on or off. When you close a task, the resolution must be entered. Just putting in a best practice, getting you the habit of typing the notes in before you just mark something as done. Completed, finished, any other notes that need to go along with it. So if someone were to look this up in the customer's history, they know that it was completed, what was done. If you're using the mobile devices, the guys in the field end up doing all this for you, which is nice. You can track a authorized buy. Someone calls in that's maybe not necessarily, if this is a condo, or in this case a larger commercial account, you may have 4 or 5 different people that call in for any given thing. You could track those people, who actually called that, prompted you to create this task. Task can track a PO number. Your due date is the service date, delivery date, pickup date. Your entered by, assigned to and sub-assigned is where you can either create some generic departments, like you could assign it to the service department or to accounting, and then further sub-assign it to the actual person. So I could assign this to service and then bill in the service department. Call concerning is a great way to track callbacks. Or if you're using this to track customer calls, instead of that little pink piece of paper while you were out, call concerning is the person that the caller is leaving a message for. You can run reports on all these fields. Time frame requested is another field. You just double click and you can set up, if you don't know an exact start and end time of when the rental needs to be delivered or when the service needs to be performed, you can have just a time frame requested to track just a general before noon, in the morning. Here's where I can also, if this is being used for service, I could click on the Rentals tab, hit Get Rentals. Everything currently rented to this customer is going to populate here, and now I can select which piece of equipment they're calling about. That way the guy knows what he's going to be fixing. They may have 3 or 4 things there. We're actually working on this piece of equipment. Tasks also have line items, so you can actually turn this into a billable work order or invoice. Anything you need to charge for, service fee, labor, parts, replacement cost, fuel surcharge. You also have additional info where you have 30 customizable fields you can use to track what other information you need to keep track of in-house. Date of service, hours on the equipment, anything else, you can just hit edit field names and create your own labels for those fields. Again, reoccurring schedule. So you could have this reoccur, if you needed this reminder, it would pre-create all these tasks, and they wouldn't stop until you either gave it an end date or end after a certain amount of occurrences. And just simply hit close to create the task. We'd see it on my task list. I can just click the corresponding color box, like the yellow box at the top of the page, to see everything due today. Or I could see everything for the service department. If I was in charge of service, I could just filter by the category and see who all in the service department is doing what. If I print a work order, has all the customer information, has the rentals, lists the equipment, the serial number, and then the date that it was rented.
What was that right there?
This is just hitting print either on the task list, prints a work order,
Okay.
or inside the task you can hit print. We have about 8 or 9 different templates like this that you can pick from, whichever suits your needs. There's some that you have a... Go ahead.
Can we insert a letterhead on those?
We don't have any customization to the static templates, but you can use your own. We have an option where you can actually create your own template based on a Microsoft Word document.
Okay.
So you can completely customize it, colors, your logo, and if you print with that option selected, it actually will allow you to select between multiple Word templates.
So it'll open that file and insert all the info into the Word document? Okay.
Correct, yep. Pre-fills just however you want it laid out. We have tutorials online of how to, basically it's just using Word bookmarks. So there's a bookmark on the document wherever the data needs to come across. And we have like a picture of the task detail screen with all the different fields with the bookmark name that you need to create in Word labeled out.
Okay. That'd be good for like quotes and stuff like that.
Is there a way to import our company logo?
Well,
Are we going to do that in QuickBooks?
For invoices, you actually do that in QuickBooks.
Okay.
So everything, go ahead.
the one thing that I'm going to be really involved with, I guess, is quotes and stuff like that, putting together that kind of stuff.
There ought to be some kind of quote module on there, huh?
So
yeah.
that was going to be a question I had whenever you got to the stopping point.
This isn't no Mickey Mouse software. We got it.
No.
We have
Actually,
a full we have a full leads list. You can keep track of prospects, potential customers, the ones you're doing the quote or estimate for, the bid. You also have the estimate list, which if we create a new estimate, you can pick a customer or lead. So if they're an existing customer and you're doing a new quote, or you could just type the name in of the new prospect if you don't want it to clutter QuickBooks right away.
Okay.
You could have a quote type, and again, you can double-click and set up a couple different generic quotes that then populate some static verbiage. Whether or not you have, 8 or 9, 10 different types of equipment, you could have kind of a special layout for each bid for that piece of equipment.
And then you can set that to print that quote or estimate. You can import it into that Word document just like you did with the task.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You can print the quote based on the Word template. You can also, there's a version quote 1 that uses a built-in template, but it does have an option to use a logo on it.
Okay. All right.
So you could pick pieces of equipment, service charges, whatever you need to. Since it's pulling from your same item list, you would pick your fixed assets. You could quote them on here. You could even do a competitor cost, so it would then show you the savings.
Now, what tab was that to get the quotes?
It was right here under estimate list.
Okay, I got it.
You can also go to estimate entry, and that would just take you right to a new estimate. You can use a sales rep from QuickBooks. Put in the quotes good until, so give a date when this pricing expires. Put in a little description. And then there is just a little mountains logo that I stuck in here, but your logo would display right up here in the middle between quote and your company information.
Okay.
It does have a field for a deposit required. Or again, you could use a Word template and select from a Word template that you've created. So if you create a new lead, the nice thing is if you're keeping track of a potential client, keeping the clutter out of QuickBooks. You can create all the information here. You can create a quote for them. But then if they do decide to, get the rental, follow through with it, now we need to make them a customer. Well, it's as simple as just opening up the lead, add to QuickBooks. Now they're a QuickBooks customer. You can then create that rental transaction.
Okay, so all the information you enter into the lead detail, that's all the information you have on them, and it just stores it in the service program until you're ready to actually fulfill that rental, and then you can update it into QuickBooks.
Yep, exactly, because what we see is a lot of times users that have been just using QuickBooks to try to make an accounting software do service, do rentals, do sales, and it can handle it, but then you get all this other customers that, haven't rented anything in ages or didn't follow through with it. Now you've already got the customer in QuickBooks, and it just creates a nightmare for accountants. This way, the only thing that gets pushed into QuickBooks is billing and actual customers that are going to be billed. Everything else just stays in the service program.
And every time you hit close, it's saving the stuff, right?
Correct. There's no save button, so the data is actually saved. Like if you're on a task, when you go from one field to the next, it saves the information of the field you just entered. But yes, closing the page is the kind of guaranteed save anything you've entered on that screen and move on.
Okay.
Now, same thing with the rental transactions. You can print right from here, and this may be easier. I don't know. It's whatever kind of, you'll find with our software, it's very flexible. There's a couple different ways to do the same procedure, and it's done that way just to try to accommodate everyone we can into the program. So what your first hurdle, if you want to call it that, you'll get over is now you've got this fancy software making your procedure. What are you doing? Who's doing what? How you're going to do it? Right from the rental transaction, you could build, if you will, a quote, and you could print a quote right from this rental transaction. Nothing fancy, but it is simple. You can also then use a Word template instead. So I could create like a rental agreement or a contract that prints based on this rental transaction.
And there's a way to take it from a quote into a rental once they decide to do that?
If you do it in the transaction, there's no difference between the two. You're creating the rental, and you're just printing, instead of it being an invoice, it says the word quote.
Right.
So if you really truly want the separation, I would use the estimate list. That's probably the best practice.
Right. But then, so say if you create it using the estimate list, create that quote, and then after they get it back there, they say they're good to go, you can take that quote and then turn it into a transaction?
You'd have to, only spot you'd really have to do double entry is you'd create it as a QuickBooks customer, and then you'd go into enter a new rental. And you could have the two tabs open and just select the same customer and pick the items and the pricing.
Okay.
There's not too much that would carry over from here, like your start and stop dates.
Right.
You can also, instead of, if you think the tasks are maybe overdoing it from day one, if you don't need to do the delivery and pickup tasks right away, as you grow, it's certainly something that'll keep you more organized, but you could simply do a delivery ticket and print a delivery ticket.
Okay.
If something or if you need something to be billed right away, I've kind of shown you the, stepping through that billing process, running a billing batch, or sending it to that pending transactions. You can always do a manual bill just by opening the transaction and hitting post to QuickBooks. That'll bill it as is. It won't do any prorating. It just will do a straight billing on this for 336, the total of all the items here.
Okay.
This is the way that if you do require a deposit of some sort first, you can actually right away, as soon as you enter the transaction, hit Post to QuickBooks. That way you have an invoice in QuickBooks that you can then receive a partial payment against, like a deposit, run a credit card, and track it from day one. That then creates a credit for that customer, possibly, or a remaining balance that anything else invoiced into it will then deduct from it or add to it.
You getting on it?
I'm going to watch these videos again whenever I'm able to sit down and actually stop and rewind stuff, you know what I mean?
The last thing you could take advantage of that you may, if you have something that, I don't know what the last time is from when the customer calls to possibly when the equipment is needed, if there is, if there needs to be some sort of reservation, if you will, if this is for something, 2 months from now that they know they need, you could basically create a transaction type, switch it to a reservation. That does not take the items out of the inventory at that point if it's a reservation. It shows up on a separate list, reservations, and then that reservation can be turned into a rental, and that's what then would pull it from the inventory. And I don't know, do you plan to be doing anything with barcoding?
Yes.
Okay. I think I kind of briefly covered it, but just to recap, we did put together a little barcoding guide. I'd be more than happy to send this to you as well via email.
Okay.
Just kind of goes over what I talked about yesterday, how to set up the different barcode fields. And then when you enter in once you have the barcode number set up, when you go to enter a transaction, you just hit Use Barcode. And then if you're entering a new rental, you just hit Enter a Rental and start scanning. That'll then populate this transaction page behind this pop-up window with whatever you scan. It'll add that to the transaction. If you're then returning a rental, hit Use Barcode again, hit Return a Rental. You have the date returned that you can control, and then it has the pop-up to invoice on return, meaning it will automatically stick it in that pending invoice list as you scan. Any other quick questions I can answer before we wrap up for today?
I think that's pretty much it. We just need to get on the phone with Intuit and get that module so we can get this thing moving.
Perfect, perfect. If you have any other questions, you can call our tech support. You can tell them that you were working with Michael in the training class on the inventory and fixed assets, and they can get you over to me. If you have any other questions for me, I'd be more than happy to field them. I want you, to get this set up correctly and only have to do it once.
Right.
All right. You guys have a great afternoon. If you have any trouble, just let us know.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'm going to put this class up too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, hang on. Which one?
The phone button.